Okay, so welcome to the second part of our STEM roundtable discussion. So if you missed the first part, Ingo, do you want to expand sort of what happened with that first part and what we'll be talking about today? First, yeah, I'd like to introduce myself quickly. My name is Ingo Barth, and I'm from Germany. I'm here at Gallaudet as a under the Fulbright to teach at Gallaudet for this spring semester, spring 2022. And I'm also hosting these once monthly meetings. So who are you, Alicia? My name is Alicia Wooten. I'm a biology professor here at Gallaudet University. Okay, before we start, let's talk a little bit about how we're going to do Zoom. We have some administrators here, some admin people who are helping us with the technical aspects of Zoom. They will be spotlighting people as people come to speak. We also have interpreters here who will do ASL or English as it requires. And if you are a person who uses international sign, I can help as well, and then also we'll have spoken English involved that way. What we'd like to do for this meeting is have people have their cameras off, and then you can either, if you want to participate, you can type in the chat, or you can also raise your hand and we'll have you come on screen to ask your question or make a comment. We do have a time limit of 1 hour, 60 minutes. And I'd just like to add that we really encourage discussion from you. If there's something that you think of, or you think of a question or discussion, please either come on camera or raise your hand or type in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat as we go. And I can also read your question and translate into ASL for the audience. So this is not just a two-person discussion between me and Dr. Barth. We really want to have this be a roundtable discussion. And if you have a topic that you want to dive into, we can do it. Yes, we need you. We need your creativity, your ideas, and your thoughts. So really, please go ahead and type in the chat or raise your hand. So if you know, we're really looking forward to this open roundtable discussion.
Don't be shy.
So you could also, if you'd like to introduce yourself and explain who you are, just turn your camera on. So, but we are hoping that people will ask questions later and also trigger some discussion. But as of right now, maybe some of you guys saw or haven't seen last week, the last one, but there was really a beautiful presentation on assignment. If you haven't seen that, it is recorded. It's online, and I highly recommend watching that film. There is ASL as well as international sign in the video and captioning. We are going to show some highlights today to kick off some discussion for this group as well.
Also, there's no formal presentation that you could go ahead and watch the other video. but today there's no social media advertising of that video, but you can go ahead and access it if you're interested. And for those of you who have joined this afternoon, if you have any questions, feel free to send us the questions in the chat, or you can send us any feedback that you had from our prior session as well. But we'd like to go ahead and start for this afternoon. I'd also like to talk too about how sign language is invented, how new signs come about in subsequent meetings. So we'll be doing that. It will be more linguistic based next time we meet. But today I'd like to talk about two things. And those are videos. Again, the lecture that we showed, the 4 videos. We'd like to discuss those. And also, we would like to talk about how we can collaborate in the future with different groups here in America and from deaf schools, and then internationally, how we can collaborate in the future. So those are the 2 things that we would like to discuss today.
Absolutely. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start with those first videos, and then we can hopefully have a good discussion after we show them. I do remember last week we showed you the Gurk alphabet, which involves both uppercase and lowercase. Should we show that video, or should we just explain a little more about that?
Well, we have 4 videos, and I'd like to ask more questions and have some grammar too about the alphabet. And also chemistry as well.
And the signs for the periodic table. The next video is the sign for the planets, which we have a German video. And then we have a 4th video as well. So we have the alphabet video, the chemical names video, the planet video, and the 4th one is also a video that we're going to show. So why don't we, I think I missed all of those videos. Is there one that somebody would like to see first? Let's see if we can take a poll. Who would like to see the first one? We have Audrey saying we'd like to see them all. We have some people saying the chemicals video. Another person voting for the solar system video.
I see all as well.
So if you had to pick one to start with, which one would you start with? Todd has put those 4 topics up there. There's the chemistry, the solar system video, the Greek alphabet, I see more votes for the solar system video. And the chemistry video is coming in second.
I think it might be good to see the solar system first, and then we can do the chemical periodic table of elements after that. For the solar system, we'll show the video, and it's in German Sign Language. but it also has German captions as well. So you can just go ahead and watch the signs. There are also some images there as well. Again, we'll click on the explanations if needed, and I'll go ahead and share my screen.
There also are not particularly set ASL signs for the planets in the solar system. So, but I am curious as we watch this one, does anybody have anything that they believe in the US that's already set? Or there's nothing that is really standard in the US. Most people fingerspell them. A few years ago, there were a few people who started to develop signs for all the planets, but it never really took off. Some people are aware of what those signs are, and some people are not. So I am curious about the people watching today. If you could, after we watch that video, could you, or right now, if you could come up and share what you use in the US for the signs for planets. I'm curious what is out there.
Yes, I know that there are a few. Before we start talking about the solar system, I think it might be nice to see the video and just explain what we have, and then we can discuss the video after we watch it. What do you think? I think that the discussion is important to make sure that we have the planets set for all of the different planets, and then we can come up with lexicon on how we talk about and orbit around that planet, and then how we move the planets in space as well. But I'll go ahead and show the video and then ask your opinions about it. Can you see my screen?
So this is how we sign solar system, to sign the planets. And now I'm talking about how Pluto was downgraded and is not a planet anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sun. Mercury. Venus. Earth. Mars.
Mars, I see.
Jupiter, because of that spot on the planet. This is Saturn. Uranus, Neptune. Oh, that's nice. You kept Pluto. And so, especially people our age, do remember that Pluto was a planet. It's been downgraded now, which was sad, but it seems like there's a lot of argument now to bring Pluto back. But it seems like they've said no.
I do include Pluto whenever I talk about the planets. And I also talk about the sign for that. And Venus as well is a similar sign.
So it used to be, you used to sign Venus like beautiful, like the Greek god was beautiful, but you're avoiding that now and making it look more like the planet. Now, is it important what the palm orientation is for the hand that is making the fist for the planet? Like it
You're right. Yeah, it is palm orientation down typically. Especially when you have the hand shape of a fist. And then the exception is Mars. Mars is
okay.
open toward you so that we can make the line to represent that it's Mars. And also Jupiter, you can see here that my hand shape is facing me. I think Saturn is similar too. You can do either fist down or toward you.
Sorry, hi, I came on. I'd like to add a comment.
Sure, please do. What is your name?
Hi, my name's Dakota Ronco, and I'm a senior here at Gallaudet. I'm a biology major. I was wondering if the palm orientation could connect to the axis. So whether or not the palm is down or up could connect to the axis.
That's a good thought. I also think that your arm location is important too, whether or not you pull your elbow up or not. So for certain planets, you can see that it's easier to have your elbow down toward your side and then shift the movement of that fist. But for Mars, it's most important that it's facing you so that you can make sure that you can make that mark on Mars. So we see what it is.
Right, for Mars. That makes sense. For Mercury and Venus, I don't know if it's as important. It seems like Mercury and Venus and Mars, you could have all the same orientation.
This is Dakota. It's also more comfortable too.
So Saturn, Uranus, Neptune as well. I think you could all have them be with the back of your hand facing outward.
This is Dakota. There's also variation in sign language too. We're all going to sign it a little bit different, so we have to consider that as well.
True. I'm sort of thinking about, how to standardize these signs. Like there might be one that is, sort of considered the textbook, version of the sign. What do you sign for the planets in ASL?
Well, I have seen a little bit with astrology. So you'll see like Astra Woke. Sometimes they have some information about signs of planets in there too, and sun and moon, of course. Venus, I don't remember what we typically sign for Venus. I think it's like this, but I'm not sure.
So
There's
like
not a lot of
beautiful on the planet.
standardization. Hmm. But you have to remember too, it's more astrology. It's not science based. So there might be some meaning behind the way they sign things as well.
Oh, I want to add too, Dakota. I have a question for you with the axis. How would you explain that the planet itself is on an axis? Would you show which planet it was and then change your palm orientation? How would you clarify that?
This is Dakota. Go ahead.
So, which planets are on an axis? Do you know? I'm not as knowledgeable about the planets.
Typically, they do shift a little bit.
So, how would you sign that in ASL or in German Sign Language?
I might be, maybe go backwards. I'm not sure.
Right, like it would be rotated almost around. I'm thinking about Neptune really, but and specifically Uranus as well. But the definitely like the difference between the rings for Uranus versus it's definitely signed that way because of the axis. And then Neptune started this way. But since we've started really focusing on having the planet be a base,
Right. And also we can use the sign and then use movement to show and explain what we're talking about as well.
oh, that's true. So, especially if you're talking about, something that, that revolves around it.
Thank you.
And one person did say in the chat that the sign for planets looks similar to the sign for amino acid. Because in the US, we sign amino acid. And so your sign for planet looks similar to that.
Audrey? Someone asked if you can sign the planets one-handed. And I know that one of the older methods, they were one-handed, but there was a lot of variation there. So I think that it's important to have something to refer back to. So if you have the fist hand shape, and then you can talk about other things in relation to the planet, I think that's helpful.
Do you think it's possible or not really?
I think maybe you could for Saturn.
So, or you could do Mercury like that.
Yeah. I know that sometimes you would drop the non-dominant hand on occasion, but I'm not sure.
Now, one person's asking, does ASL have specific signs for the individual planets? I've only seen Earth, but not the others. There are some videos out there explaining proposals for different planets. I believe there's one on ASL that Joe Wheeler did, a video on what he'd like to see the signs for planets be. So I've seen that. So people on social media did share his suggestions. I don't know if there's others, but that I don't remember any others, but I do remember Joe Wheeler's went out, but not that many people are aware of it. Now, Audrey is making a comment that BASL has them for the first 4 planets. That with an open fist. Audrey, do you mean this? Audrey, is that what you mean? Could
Yes,
you come up and show us? you show us an example?
Hi, everyone. It's dark. We're having a lot of rain. We have the sun, and then we set the planets up this way.
Oh, you use an
More like an O
that's what
hand
you meant
shape.
by open fist. Okay.
Use an O hand shape rather than the S hand shape. Yeah, but I understand why you would use the S because it's a solid. And on where the sun is, it's hotter. And on the other side where it's shadow, it's colder. So I like to be able to depict that as well.
Which planet do you mean now, Audrey?
Yeah, well, you can't see any light. There's a lot of CO2. It's very dark. And it also represents the atmosphere.
Oh, so you sign Earth with the atmosphere? Oh, okay. That's what I do too. I sign Earth, but I have seen that new sign for Earth, like a fist with the atmosphere. I've seen some discussion about it, but I usually go back to the other sign for Earth.
Yes, I think that Earth is becoming more and more used now. And for Mars, I've seen this hand shape with the V because there are two stripes across it. So I have seen that for Mars. I like that too. The V represents the two rings around it. I'm trying to think of another one. I've seen this as well. And Saturn, of course.
So interesting with the O hand shape. Interesting. You do Saturn with the O hand shape.
And also we talk about orbiting. It's easier to move your elbows up so that you can show that rotation as well. So
we do Uranus like that.
Yeah, we've also talked about how moving your elbow up also helps with ergonomics as well, makes it easier to sign it. And we've also discussed the rings too. You can represent them with numbers 1, 2, 4.
Well, there are 1 to 6 moons, so they all orbit around. It's got to be pretty busy.
Right, it's hard to envision it.
What about Pluto?
I've seen this for Pluto.
I have a question for both of you. The signs for the planets, have you already made videos of those and put them online? Have you done any video publishing of those?
We have on social media for my project, we do have some videos that we are editing and posting.
It would be great to be able to see those and also be able to compare the differences.
Also, it would be nice if we had one website with all of the different information and then each country and how it's represented too. That would be neat. We could have like flags representing each country, and then you could click on that and see how you sign them.
And especially because there could be different groups that use different signs. But I definitely think having an international group of those.
This is Alicia. Also, I would like to, I really like your definition of, or your explanation as to why you sign open or closed fist. I think that generally we don't talk about why we choose the signs that we do. So I like to talk about why German chose the way they chose to sign it, how they choose to sign it in BSL, and then think about the rationale behind that. And then we could really think about and analyze each language, and then people who don't have signs for this yet could analyze it a little bit more, or maybe have an international way to sign them.
Yes, I think Saturn would be almost international at this point. We're all doing it. So this is Ingo. So what you were saying about having your elbow up is important to understand what's orbiting around the planet instead of having your elbow down.
Right. And the other thing too, we have to remember that a lot of these are children signing them too. So it's important that we make sure that it's things that they can sign using their fine motor skills too. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, yes, we are understanding you. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is Ingo. Why don't we show the next video, which is the chemistry video.
Can we just not watch the whole video, or maybe show maybe 1 or 2 minutes of it and then discuss it? Is that okay? It's totally up to you, but
I think I'd like to ask the group. I don't want to be the only one who decides.
okay, what do you think? Do you want to see all of the elements? It might be cool. What do you think? Let us know in the chat. One for all, 2 for a snippet. We're getting the tallies in now. What do you think? I want a few more. It seems like most people want to see the whole video. We'll watch it in clippets of 2 minutes because the whole video is 5 or 6 minutes. And then we'll make sure we go line by line. We'll do the first row from 1 to 18, and then we'll do the second row. I think that will be easier. And they're pronounced the same.
And so these are the 4 rows of text that are going to be on each slide. I have the atomic number, the German word, the English word, and then the atomic symbol. And so I kind of like that to have, because those are all standard, to then have this signs also be standard. Oh, Ingo, I think you froze. Can you still see it? It's frozen for me. Okay, we have a question in the chat. Are these signs organized by group? Like alkalis, noble gases, halogens. So did you use those groupings to help you create the signs, or how did you organize those?
When I looked at the table of elements, I did put them into groups, and then there would be more discussion on what they are. And then we would consider numbers and then categories based on familiarity too. Alkalis has a sign already for that, and lithium, I think.
And potassium. Oh yes, right. That's interesting. I saw that. Exertion.
It's also if extremes are involved too, so like water or gas. And for noble, in German, we use two things back to back. There's one for platinum too. And there were some that we have already come up with. And then we would follow the chemical elements as well. But I would like for everyone to really discuss all of these signs, and then in the future, come up with other ideas too, and have some discussion in regard to it.
So I see another thing in the chat that says I was expecting the elements in that group to have similar signs. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's one example with alkalis. And we talk about bonding too. Or
magnets.
Or magnets as well. Like neodymium. Those are a couple that we include the sign for magnet as well.
Okay. I noticed that some of the words, they could be different in German, but for the English words, the ones that end in IUM, you used this sign as well, but then some of them did not. So what was the grouping? Like, is that based on the German word? Like, so ones that don't have IUM, or how did you decide which ones have that second sign?
When you see IUM, it's typically the location or the person's name. And typically it's the person or location name that I will use, and then I will add that sign as well. So it's almost a compound sign. But if there's no person or location, then you don't need to add that F hand shape at the end.
So just to separate those out, the ones that would already have, people would recognize as a different sign, you added like a sign for atom at the end, but the others you didn't. If they
Right.
weren't. Okay, interesting. Todd, you want to spotlight yourself?
Yes, this is a little analytical, but going back to the solar system and the planets, there's talk about how we sign planets, and I think that we've come to agreement on that. But I feel like with the periodic table of elements and chemicals, there's not a whole lot of discussion about that in consensus of what it is. It really would take time to really analyze and figure out what the signs could be. I think that the solar system is easy because we teach it in elementary schools often. And the solar system is pretty easy to come up with a concept that makes sense in all languages. So I'm trying to think of what the analysis is. And my first thought is it's almost a waste of time to do so much analysis. But I was wondering why you want to do this, why you want to study this.
Oh, thanks for that question. I agree that it would be impossible to learn and memorize them all. Like just in regular conversation, we don't talk about periodic table of elements. But I did, base some of them on the character or whatever. But I think it depends on where you work. And so if you work in chemistry or you work in a field, there would be fields that use those elements all the time. So and some of them are really coming into common language more. Like if you sell glasses, you talk about titanium. If you work for the dentist, you talk about certain chemicals. So I do think there are deaf people in enough fields now that there are certain chemicals that would be useful to have signs. Certainly not all of them. There are some chemicals that are just not used in many everyday conversations. But if we had them, then we would be able to use them. I didn't start out planning to do all of them. I thought I would just do the first few rows. But then I just got started talking to other deaf people involved in science, and they got interested in it, and we did the whole thing. So that's how it happened.
Yeah, for titanium, for example, we know that one. And sometimes we even will just say TI for titanium. So maybe you could just abbreviate it that way, or would you prefer an official sign for it?
I mean, I think both would be reasonable. The sign is an abbreviation, whereas if you use finger spelling, it would be an abbreviation versus using a sign for the whole word. I mean, a lot of things do that. We have abbreviations and the whole word. Like, do you use FE for iron? Do you sign FE? Or what do you sign?
I usually just finger spell iron.
So I use FE when I'm talking, if I need to say iron. So, but I have seen other deaf people not want to sign FE to talk about iron. So I do think in some groups, they develop signs for specific terms. So some of them are pretty, easy to add into your vocabulary because they're simpler signs. The ones that are more complicated, it might be good to have both.
Yeah. I think too, when you talk about like helium or gold, silver, I think that they often come up in common language, but some of the other ones, I don't even remember what they were now.
And some of them were named after a person.
Oh, this is really interesting. Thank you.
So it's the person who researched it and found it first. And so sometimes we looked into what they looked like or something along the lines of that. But that was pretty hard to do. But we did find there was one where the person who invented that around where that, in that area, that was a local sign. And so they knew it as something else. So, and as a person's name. So we ended up having to add a sign for Adam at the end.
Neat. We have one other question from Audrey. How do you sign compound? Like
sodium,
hydrogen, like
like
sodium
sodium
chloride.
chloride. Well, unfortunately, we didn't. The most recent workshop that we did on Zoom, where we had discussed a meeting, where we had that meeting, we didn't include that discussion. But in that group of scientists with the biologists and chemists, I do think that that should be a future talk. But there are millions of compounds, and then there's also the organic chemical compounds that would be even more complicated.
I'm curious, in Germany, who is responsible?
So Na, sodium, means smaller, or so people do kind of make the part of the sign to mean smaller. And then if you have two of them, so if you have double, then they make that two sort of go down, like it's smaller. For sodium chloride, we do involve that kind of a shoulder movement to show that it's smaller.
Okay, now time is running out. We only have 5 minutes left. So we're going to hold on the second discussion for another time. But I wanted you to think about how we can collaborate with each other after this Zoom meeting. I feel like it's really helpful to see everyone in your unique signs that you have and where you're from and how you sign things. It's really nice to be able to work together.
Yes, and one thought, do you guys think that Gallaudet should be the place where this is set? Or should it be, should we hold this, if we do any kind of organization where we set this up, should it be at Gallaudet, or should it be in a more neutral area to involve, show that it's more international and more standard, that it's not just for Gallaudet? Or because this could end up taking quite a while. But they do have, spoken English, hearing people do have standard terms for all of these. But I do think that if we keep this international group going, we can get to some collaborations. I'd like to be able to meet regularly.
Yeah, we do have one scheduled for next month.
Yes,
on the 23rd, I believe. So it's exactly 1 month from today, on a Wednesday, I believe. So that's the next time we'll be getting together and having this conversation.
Great.
After that is going to be April 20th. So March 23rd and then April 20th. Mark your calendars.
And so I want to do this again in International Sign, March 23rd and April 20th. So there are 2 next meetings set. For these meetings, I would love to talk about how we can collaborate and also plan for future meetings. At that second meeting, let's talk linguistics. I'd love to talk about that more. That's right, Audrey. Okay, any more questions?
Okay, sounds good. Any final comments or anything before we wrap up? All right,
Okay.
thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting.
And this, we are going to upload this meeting for people to watch later. All right. See you again at the next meeting.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.